In this video, we're going to learn how to do access reports. So a report is where we can display our data in a really nice way, maybe to your boss or to your employees or your vendors, and it can be nicely formatted. It can be made to look nice. It can have calculations. So there's a couple great tools to make a report in Microsoft Access. One is called the Auto Report, and one is called the Form Wizard. So a report can either come from a table or a query. So what's the difference? If you want to show every single record, then you make the report come from the table. However, if you only want to show certain records, then you make the query and make the report come from the query. First, let me show you something that's called an auto report. So it's a very quick way to make a report. Now you have to pick the table first, or the query. So I'll pick on the word products, the products table, and we'll pick on the create menu, and I'll pick on the word report. And just like that, it makes a great report from the products table. Now the auto report is going to show every single field, but it was a very, very quick way to make a report. Now of course you can always go back to design view, but there's no quicker way to make a report than the auto report. Watch again. I'm going to close that report window and we'll save it. And I'll call it RPT products. A lot of times when you have reports, you might use the prefix of RPT for the report. You don't have to, but many people in the Access community use that naming standard. So I'll click on OK. Watch how we make an auto report. I'll pick on the shippers table. I'll pick on create and then the word report. And it makes an instant report for me. Of course, I can go and design view from there, but it really gives you a great head start making a report. So I'm going to close that window and put that away. So I'll save it and I'll call that an RPT underscore shippers. Now, I like another one that's called the Report Wizard. The way to make a great report is the Report Wizard. The Report Wizard is excellent because you can pick and choose your fields. And also during the Report Wizard, you can apply subtotals and grand totals to your report. So here's the Report Wizard. I'll pick on the Create menu, and I'll pick on the Report Wizard right there. Now, first thing you want to do is you want to pick your table. So I'll pick on the Orders table. Notice how you can also pick queries. I'll pick on the Orders table, and now you pick some fields. You just double-click on the fields that you want. So I'll pick on Order ID, Customer ID, Order Date, and I'll pick on Order Amount. Clearly, you can pick as many fields as you wanted to. So I'll pick on Next. Now it says, do you want to have grouping levels? If you want subtotals in the report, then you should have at least one grouping level. Now it shows customer ID here because in this database I made a relationship between the customers table and the orders table based on the customer ID. That's why I chose customer ID there. I made that assumption. In this case, if I don't want that, I can click this left arrow. Now I do want to pick by customer ID, so this is the way you would usually say it. I'm going to double click on customer ID. And notice how that's promoted above the rest of the fields. So that means all the orders for the same customer will be grouped together, and that opens up the door for subtotals. So if you want subtotals, you have to have at least one grouping level. And if you want subtotals within subtotals, then you'll have more than one grouping level. You can have as many as you wanted to. So I'll pick on Next. And then it's going to be organized by customer ID. But then within customer ID, I can sort by several fields. So I'll sort by order date. So it'll sort first by customer ID and then by order date within the customer ID. Notice how I can have several sort fields. Now here's a really important choice. I'll pick where it says Summary Options. This allows me to pick which fields we're going to subtotal on the report. I'll pick on Sum next to Order Amount. Notice how we can do average and minimum and maximum. I can show the detail and the summary. I can show the summary only, or I can calculate the percent of total. So those are the kind of things you can do within the wizard. Once we're in design view, we can add a lot more calculations and features to the report. But this is what you get during during the wizard. So I'll pick on OK. By the way, when let me go back there for a second. When I picked on Sum next to Order Amount, it'll add a subtotal and it'll add a grand total at the same time. At this point, I'll pick on Next. Now for these layouts, maybe we'll try block layout. And you just have to try them and see which one is going to look good for you. But I'll pick on block, and then I'll make it portrait. And I'm going to say adjust the field width so all fields fit on one page. If you had a lot of fields, maybe you make it landscape as well, so you'd have more fields going across. I'll pick on next. And that's it for the wizard. I'll pick on finish. And let's see what kind of report that it made for us. So it looks nice. Now here's the first customer. These are the orders for that first customer. So that was that grouping. And then notice over here we have a subtotal. So it gives you a subtotal for each customer. At the bottom of the page, I have the page number and the date. We'll go to the next page. Here's the page navigator down here. And you can see how each customer has their own customer ID, and then the order details, and then the sum of those orders for that customer. That was that grouping. Now I'll go to the last page. Here's the last page indicator right there. And on the last page, we even have a grand total. Now, just like in Excel, when you see the pound signs or the hashtags, I have to make that larger. But besides that, it made a pretty nice report. Has a grand total, a subtotal for each customer. We have a page number and the date. You know, the report looks pretty nice. So what I would highly recommend to you is use the auto form or the auto report or the report wizard, and then you can take it from there. So now we'll go to design view. So in design view, the report has all of these sections. Let me describe this to you. The report header only prints at the top of each page. The report header is going to print on the first page only. So the word orders here will only be on the first page because it's in the report header section. The page header section, on the other hand, will print at the top of each page. That's where we have our column headings, or that's where we have any kind of introductory information for each page, maybe the page number. The page header will print at the top of each page. The customer ID header will print at the top of each customer if you want something at each different customer. Now the detail section will print for each detail record, for each record in the entire table. It's really the body of the report. So if your report has 500 records, the detail section will print 500 times over multiple pages. That's really the body of the report right there. The customer ID footer is also called the group footer. That's going to appear at the bottom of each group, in this case the customer, and that's where we put our subtotals. Let me show you where the subtotal is. Here it's going to say the word sum. That's just going to be the word sum. That's what we call a label. And then if I come over here, here's the actual formula for the subtotal. I'm going to stretch it out a little bit. It says equal sum order amount. So it's using the sum function that you might see in Excel, but here in Access, we're using a field name order amount. Because it's in the customer ID footer, it'll give you the subtotal for that customer. The page footer will appear at the bottom of each page. Maybe that's where you put the date and the time, or the page number. Here it's using the now function. The now function can be formatted to show the date or the date and time. And that'll change, obviously, every time that you print the report to that day's current date and maybe the time if you had it that. And then we have the page numbers. That'll print at the bottom of each page because it's in the page footer section. The report footer will be on the last page only. That's where we have things like the grand total or any kind of summary information. Here's the word grand total. That'll just be the word grand total. That's a label. And then here's the formula for the grand total. I'm going to stretch that one out also. That's where we saw the pound signs. So that needs to be stretched out anyway. But notice how it says equal sum order amount. It's the same formula that we have in the subtotal. But because it's in the report footer section, it'll give us the grand total for the entire report. So the report wizard did all of this for us. You can see it saves you a lot of time. Could you make that report from scratch? Sure. Knock yourself out. 2 hours later, you'll have the exact same report. Use the wizard, everybody. It's going to save you a lot of time, and then we can make our design changes from here. Gives you a tremendous head start. I highly recommend the auto report or the report wizard. Now, I'm going to add a label into here. A label is like a piece of text, so I'm going to click on that. I'll click over here, and I'll say the PC guy. Let's try that again. I'm going to click there, click over here, and I'll type in PC guy. And there's your text. That works a lot like it does in a form. In fact, designing a report is very similar to what we learned in designing a form, if you watched that other video that I have on my page. So in this case, I'm going to make that larger. So I'll pick on the home menu, change the font size, and I will make it nice and black. Now notice how it didn't change the size of that field. So I'm going to get the sizing handle and then just double click on the sizing handle, and that'll make it the appropriate size. So I can always add these kind of controls into my report, very similar to the form. Now let me show you how you would make it so that we have a new calculation here. So what we're going to do is maybe we'll add the sales tax. So I'll pick on this guy right over here, which is called a text box. And the text box is how you add a calculation or a different field onto your report. So I'll click there. And I'm going to move it right onto the details section because I want that to print for every single record in the report. So I'll click right there. Now, anytime you add a text box onto a form or to a report, you also get a label. You just start looking for it, and I'll pick on the word text right there and delete that. It's not going to be appropriate there. So now notice how it says unbound. I'm going to click where it says unbound, and then I'm going to come up here and open up the property sheet window, which is over here on the side. So these properties are all about that one field. There's so many different things you can do with that one field based on the property sheet. Here's how we add a formula. I'll pick on the data tab. The formula always goes into the control source property. So I'll pick on the dots right there, or the dash next to the control source. And then you get a really great window that's called the expression builder. This is where you can build a formula in Microsoft Access. The expression builder would also show up in forms and reports and queries, and now even in tables, because now we have calculated fields. So let's see. I'm looking for the order amount field. I'm going to double click on order amount, and it puts that into my formula. That's why it's called the expression builder. And I'll say times 0.06. Here in Pennsylvania, which is where I'm recording this, in the United States, we have 6% sales tax. So in a formula, you're going to use the field names. Otherwise, mathematically, it could be very simple or very complicated. Just use your field names in your formula. The math is going to be similar to Excel. And notice how Access even has the built-in functions. And from there, you can make your formula some more complex. So I'll click on OK. Now, with that field, I know I'm going to have to format that to be currency. So I'll pick on the word format on the property sheet, and I'll pick on the format property, and I'll make it currency. Watch again how we're going to add our own field into the report. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And let me see what that field is called. That field is called text 18. All right, so now here's how to add a formula onto a report. We'll pick on the AB right there. It's called a text box. And I'm going to move right over here into the details section and click there. Now, I just know from using Access for a long time that it adds this word text over there. So I'll click on the word text to delete that. Now, I'm just going to move this up, and it says unbound. From there, I'll pick in the data tab of the property sheet, and once again, I'll pick in the dash to the right of the word control source. Now, I'm going to double click where it says order amount, and I'll type in the plus sign. And now I could have given that field a better name, but I called it text 18. So I'll double click where it says text 18, and that puts that in my formula. So you're just going to use your field names in your formula. Otherwise, the math will be similar to what you might see in Excel. Click on OK there. Now I'll pick on the Format tab of the Property sheet, and I'll change the format to be currency. Let's see what this is going to look like. I'm going to go ahead and do a print preview. The reports out of the print preview. And now we can see how we have the sales tax and we have the total. So now I have to move those over a little bit, tiny bit. So let's do that. And there's the title I added. I'm going to go back to design view. So you can see I'll move these over a little tiny bit so that it's going to fit in that one page. Good. So let's run it again, print preview. And that's better. Good. All right, so now notice I only had to add that in one time, and it added to all the records because I put it on the details section. I see those fields have that little box around it, so let's take that away with the design view. And also I'd like to have the field to have a title at the top like the other fields do. So that box is called a border. So I'm going to pick on the first one, and I'll go to the property sheet, go to the format tab, and I'll say the border style is going to be transparent. Good. And we'll go to this one, and we'll make the border style transparent. So that'll get rid of that little box around that field. Now, to add the column title, it'll just be one of those labels. So I'll pick on this guy right over here, and try to line that up a little bit. So in this case, I'll type in sales tax, and I can probably just space over there and just type in line total. That'll be fine. Good. So let's see what that looks like now. We'll go ahead and do a print preview. And let's go to the top of the page, and let's see if those titles are there. Sure, it says sales tax and line total. Now I can always adjust that so that it's going to be lined up with those other fields. That's not a problem. You just go back to design view, and then you can move those fields around. Now also, I want to show you that when you're in print preview mode, notice I right click on that tab and pick the word print preview. Then you can export that report to Excel, a text file, a PDF, an email, and other file formats, including SharePoint. All right, so that'll be in every report in Access when you're in print preview mode. So this is kind of bothering me a little bit. So let's go back and go back to design view. And now I'm just going to pick this up and drag it so that it'll be more lined up with the other fields. Good. And maybe we'll put a couple spaces before the word sales tax there. Good. All right, that'll be great. Let's run that. And that looks better. So I would highly recommend. Now, this is something that happened. This blank page is there, and it's going to be there for every other page. So I went over the border a little bit there. So I'll go back to design view. And let me show what I mean. We're going to move this back a little bit, and then just move this back a little bit, and then we should be fine. So if you notice at the top of the window here, it has the 8-inch mark for the ruler. Well, let me show you why that makes a difference, and why I just, when we exceeded that a little bit, it went to the next page. In this case, I'll pick on page setup, and I'll pick on margins. And I have narrow. So it's a 1/4 inch on the left-hand side and a 1/4 inch on the right-hand side. That's a 1/2 of an inch. So I only have 8 inches to work with as far as the space for the report. I went slightly over 8 inches. Therefore, the width is going to be more than 8.5 inches for the paper size, and that's why it wouldn't fit on one page. So this edge here plus the margins has to be less than or equal to 8.5 inches. Otherwise, it overlaps into the next page when you're using portrait style, right? Let's see if that fixed it. I'll go back to print preview. And now you can see it's better. So I would highly recommend that you use the auto report or the form wizard so that we can make adjustments to our report. Now I'm going to go ahead and go to the next page here. Now look at this section over here. See how it says ERNSH. That's going to be the first customer. And then notice how it overlaps into the next page, so that's good. Now, what if they ask you to say, okay, well, can you put each customer on a separate page? Let's see how we can make that work. I'm going to right-click on Orders and go back to Design View. What I'll do is I'll pick on the Customer ID Footer section, right on that section, and that has its own properties. See how it says Group Footer right there? We'll pick on the Format tab, and I'll say Force New Page After Section. That means it'll print a subtotal for that customer, and before it does anything else, it'll go to the next page. Let's see what that does for us. So I picked on the section, on the property sheet, I said Force New Page, and I said After Section. Let's run that. There's the first customer on the first page, and then the next page will have the next customer, and so on, and so on. Now that the report's like this, I want the word Orders and the word PC Guide to appear on every page. Watch how we'll do that. Now, some people will try to retrofit the report header to fit on every page, but really we're just going to move that stuff into the page header, which already prints at the top of each page. So if you notice where my mouse is, I'm going to get that section, drag it down. That should be plenty of room. Now I want to move all of these at one time. I could move them one at a time, but there's a quicker way. I'm going to click on this ruler, and that'll select that whole line of fields, and I'll move them down. Good. Now I'll just pick up orders and move it into the page header, and I'll pick up the PC guy and move that into the page header. And now I don't need the report header anymore, so I'll make that smaller. All right, so I'll make it really small. Let's see what happened. I'll pick on print preview, and notice how the words orders in the PC guy is now on every page because I put it on the page header section. And every page only has one customer. All right, so the report wizard gives you a tremendous head start, but I showed you how to make some changes onto a report using Design View. So we'll close that window and we'll save it. Now I want to show you something that's called a sub-report. If I go back into the orders report with Design View, and we'll actually run it with print preview. Each order right now is not showing the actual order details. To show the order details, we need something that's called a sub-report. So I'll go back to Design View again. Now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the details section bigger. So I'm going to go on this section below the details section and drag it down a little bit. And then the sub-report is just a control on the report. So here in Design View, I'll pick on this guy right over here. It says subform/sub-report. It's the same way you add a subform at the form level. So we'll come over here and let's say I'm going to click right under that order ID. That should be good. And now the sub-report wizard starts. And I'm going to use an existing table. Click on Next. I'll use the order details table. Make sure you pick the proper table here. Do order details. I'm going to use all of those fields. Good. Now it says show order details for each record in orders using the order ID. When you use this subform, the two tables in question have to have a common field. And it saw that the common field was order ID, so that is correct. If that wasn't correct, then you would say define my own, and you would pick the fields that you want to be common between those two tables. I'll pick on Next, and I'll pick on Finish. Now, I'm wondering if that overlaps into the next page. Let's see. So, going back to what I talked about before, it actually did go to the next page. So you can see there's the 7-inch mark and then 8 and 9. So I'm going to move that back over to the left. I was trying to make it go under the order ID, but that's okay. I'm just going to drag it over here. All right, good. Move it further. And then once again, we'll make it so that the report is at the 8-inch mark. Otherwise, that would cause that page break problem. Good. Let's see what this is going to look like now. We're going to go back to print preview. All right, so here's 10643, and here's the details for 10643. And that's exactly what the subform did. Here's 10692, and there's the details for 10692. So it shows the one-to-many. Now, first of all, I want to get rid of this word order details sub-report. And second of all, I would like, let's see the second page. Good. Second of all, I would like maybe a line to separate each one. So let's go back to Design View. Now you see where it says order details sub-report. I'm going to click on that and hit my delete key to get rid of that. And then what I'll do is right before the customer ID footer, just add some more space there. And there's going to be another control that will be a straight line. So I'll click on that straight line. Now let me show you a big trick. To keep that line straight, I'm going to hold down my Shift key before I drag it. I'll hold down Shift, drag it over. Good. Now let's see what that looks like. Print preview. And notice how that line kind of separates it. So, and I don't see that word order details anymore. So now we can see which ones go with, like 1072 is going to go with 10702. So the lines are separated. That looks a little bit better there. Good. So this is what we call a sub report, because it's going to show the one-to-many. I'm going to close this report and we're going to save it. Now, another report that you want to know about is the label wizard. Here we can make labels right within Microsoft Access. Instead of having to go to Word, we can do it right in Access. So now for this one, you want to pick your table. So I'll pick on the customers table. I'll pick on Create, and I'll pick on the label wizard, which is right there, the word labels. In this case, I'm going to use English. I'll use sheet feed. That's for like a laser printer. And if you ever see that printer with the holes in the side, it would be continuous, but I bet most of us use sheet feed. And for the filter by manufacturer, I'll pick on Avery. Those are the ones that I can usually get, Avery. And then there's a size that most people use. It's called 5160, and that's your standard address size for the labels, although any of those ones would work. So I'll pick on Next. I can always change the label font and the font size later on, so I'll skip that for right now. It needs a prototype label, and the prototype label is going to come from your fields. So I'll pick on company name. I'll go to the second line. I'll pick on contact name. I'll go to the next line. I'll pick on address. On the next line, I'll pick on city. Now I'll type in a comma and a space. The state here is called region. I'm just double clicking on these fields, by the way. And then a couple more spaces, and then I'll get the postal code. And for the last line, I'll use the country. So your prototype field, your prototype label is made up of your fields, and clearly you can choose as many as you wanted to. And you can also type in what you want. So I'll pick on Next. Now it says I'd like to sort the labels. So I'll sort it by country, and then by postal code within country. That's your sort fields for the labels, how they're going to be sorted. And I'll pick on Next, and now I'm done with that wizard, so I'll pick on Finish. Now, whenever you run the labels, you're going to get this message. It's okay. Just ignore it. Nothing's going to happen. I'll click on OK. And what was that? 3 minutes. Now it just made nice labels out of my Access database. So that was called your label wizard. And it's right there under the, I want to close that window. Now here in Design View, then I can make my changes if I need to. But here in Design View, I'll pick on company name, and I'll make that bold under the Home menu. All right, so let's see what that looks like now. I'll do Print Preview. You can just click on OK if you get this message, which you will, and then we're in good shape. All right, those are looking pretty good. Now we'll close that. It's actually going to make a report. We'll close that window, and we'll say yes to save that. So we have our tables, queries, forms, and reports. And if you had macros, then the next section would be macros in the Report Navigator. So I showed you the Report Wizard. I showed you the Auto Report. Showed you a little bit about Design View and how you can customize that report to add your own formulas and the different formatting. And then I also showed you the label wizards. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson on making reports in Microsoft Access. My name is Tom Fragale, and I'll see you the next time. Thanks a lot.